Hello, everybody. Today's presentation is going to be about blended learning. So, what is blended learning? Blended learning is an innovative concept that integrates ICT supported learning with traditional teaching process. This means that blended learning is a method of teaching that combines traditional teaching with technology. And this what do we mean by ICT? Because ICT stands for information and communication technologies. And this basically refers to all kind of technological tools that are used in communication, that are used by teachers to deliver information to their students. So a kind of combination between old-fashioned teaching and new way of teaching that is supported by technology. So traditional teaching is an old way of teaching that almost all teachers around the world work with. It includes, of course, face-to-face classroom teaching, in which the teacher is expected to do everything, delivering lesson, explaining the lesson, um, giving exercises and homework tasks to their students. And also in traditional teaching, there is a kind of formal interaction with the teacher, and because the teacher and their students work physically inside classroom. And also more important is that students in traditional way of teaching are dependent on their teacher. And this one of the weaknesses of traditional teaching, because as we said earlier that the teacher is expected to do everything, and this, of course, will create a kind of passive learners because learners can do anything. They only receive and consume information and then apply it. Okay, so which we don't want, of course. And when we add this kind of technology to the traditional teaching, which is the ICT, ICT itself consists of two types. We have synchronous and asynchronous. Concerning synchronous, it includes computer assisted, which includes of course all kind of electronic devices, internet platforms, video conference, and so on and so forth. And in synchronous, um, the teacher is expected to conduct online meeting with their students. So here there is a kind of online interaction between the teacher and their students, in which or where students can ask their teacher and get feedback from their teacher online. Also, one of the features of Synchronous is that students can create a kind of social network groups in which they can interact with each other independently, which means that they don't need even the assistance of their teacher. So they create a kind of group which of course will benefit the performance of those students. Also, teachers can assign online assessments and the students can complete these assessments online. And more important is that the teacher is no longer the person who is expected to do everything to their students. The teacher in blended learning is more a facilitator than educator. He is a supervisor. He guides their students, and this what allows uh, students to be more active learners because they will be independent and they will create their own projects. They will learn their own way of learning. And this is what do we want, because we want active and not passive learners. Concerning asynchronous, blended learning is a kind of offline teaching or offline learning. This can help students uh, um, to become more self learners. And asynchronous students can upload documents, can upload videos and materials, and teachers can provide their students with this kind of documents and videos so students can access these materials anytime and anywhere they prefer. And this one of the positive features of blended learning is that students no longer can have the opportunity to learn only inside classrooms. They can only learn everywhere they go at any time they want. So this is one of the most important features of blended learning. And this, of course, will allow students to develop their own way of learning, since they will learn in front of their computers, in front of their tablets, and so on and so forth. They will learn how to develop their own way of learning. And this, of course, uh, will give us a kind of active learners. And asynchronous also is a flexible uh, method or flexible way of learning, because as I said, is a kind of offline learning. Okay, so blended learning types. There are several types of blended learning. I only picked up two types that I personally prefer. The first one is called flipped classroom, and the second one is called project-based learning. Concerning flipped classroom, um, is based on the kind of the teacher introduces the content or introduces the lesson online and also at home. Okay, and the second thing is that the students work together and create or complete their own project inside classroom. It's like there is a reversed way of teaching, because teachers use, as I said, in traditional way of teaching, teachers are expected to explain the lesson, to explain the content of the lesson inside classroom. And after that, they provide students with some kind of exercises to practice in at home. But in blended learning, especially in flipped classroom, the students are expected to learn at home and do exercises at home, and when they come to the classroom, they complete their work, they discuss the lesson, they discuss the assessment with their teachers, with their teacher. And the teacher here is only, as I said, a facilitator. He is a guidance for their students. And this is the most important new way of teaching, is that you give the opportunity to your students to learn at home, and when they come to the class, they discuss what they have learned at home. Also, flipped classroom um, uh, helps the classroom to be an active learning environment, because when you discuss a project, when you discuss a topic, your classroom become more active and more enjoyable. This is of course one of the features of flipped classroom. Also, flipped classroom enables students to learn on their own and become active learners. And this is the most important feature and aspect and goal of educational system, is to come up with active learners. And finally, flipped classroom allows teachers to supervise its students individually. What does this mean? This means that in traditional way of teaching, teachers cannot supervise all the students individually, because we know that the classroom might consist of 40, 30, even 50 learners or students, and it is impossible for the teacher to supervise every student individually. In blended learning, inside classroom, the teacher can create a kind of groups, and each group has its own task, has its own activity. So the teacher can move freely inside the classroom and supervise this group and supervise the task or the project that they are doing, and then he can advise and he can um, correct some kind of mistakes, okay, and he can supervise students each students individually. This is also important and the positive feature of flipped classroom. The second type of blended learning is called project-based learning. Here, students can learn knowledge and develop skills by identifying a real-world problem and collaboratively develop a solution. So this basically means that inside classroom, the teacher provides their students with a kind of real problem, and uh, he or she assigns their students to work on collaboration with one another and to try to find solution to that real world problem. And this creates a kind of active learners, and the learners or the students can develop their skills and their ability to work to find solution to some problems. So this basically was a presentation concerning blended learning.